All right, so after you have everything Sharpied and you erase all your extra pencil lines, you can go ahead and start to add some color to it. Now we'll be doing some shading again with this project, so you want to use color pencils or crayons would also work. Markers you really can't do your shading with. Now I would recommend either having a piece of scrap paper or do some color testing on the back of your paper. If you're trying to figure out what colors look good together, you might want to try that out first. All right, so to get started, we're going to be adding a cast shadow onto our paper. So figure out which side your light's coming from, and the opposite side is going to have a cast shadow. I didn't have a lot of room for my shadow, so it's going to be coming off the side over here. So for the cast shadow, just like Thiebaud, we're going to use like a bluish color for our shadows. Now I'm going to have my cast shadow kind of coming off the side, and it's going to stop here at the edge of the table, and another part is just all going to be kind of darker over here. So I'm going to take my blue. Right now it's like a blue violet, so it's pretty dark. I'm going to put a layer of color down. Now you can overlap it with another shade of blue to get it darker. I have a darker blue violet here, so I'm just going to go over a little bit more to get a little darker shade. All right, so after you have your cast shadow made, you want to start to figure out what kind of icing and what kind of flavors you're going to have for your cake. So I think I'm going to have kind of a yellow cake with chocolate frosting on the inside, and then maybe on the outside I think I'm also going to maybe have chocolate dripping down with maybe some different creams and maybe a colorful bit of frosting coming along the edge. And I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with the candles, but we'll get there when we get there. So I'm going to start with my cake at the bottom, and since it's a yellow cake, it's going to be start with a yellowish color. Go figure. I'm just going to start by putting a base layer of color down. So what I mean by that is this color kind of medium to get the color that I want down. I'm going to come back and overlap it with another color and also press a little bit harder to get a little bit darker shade. Now the cake is going to be a little bit browner because when you bake a cake, it often will get browner. Plus this is going to be on our shadowed side of our cake. We want to try to make it look 3D. So you can go over it with like another shade of brown. I don't want to go too hard. It's going to get the edges a little bit, like the undersides. I don't want to go too much so that it turns into more of a brown burnt cake or a chocolate cake, or too much yellow that it becomes like a lemon. So it's kind of a matter of finding that balance. And always can test the colors in the back of your paper on another piece of scrap paper, which is another trick you can use. So I'm just going to get on the left side of my frosting a little bit darker in the undersides. So I'm always kind of thinking about where my light is coming from. I'll get a little bit darker along that edge. Now after you have your browns in, a little bit darker shade, I'm going to actually go over it with a darker blue. So I'm going to take blue violet a little bit first. Just a little bit, you don't want to go too much. It's kind of getting those edges a little bit darker. And don't be afraid if you get a little bit more blue on there, because if Thiebaud also had blue. You just want to make sure that you have your colors that you want on the underside layered first, because once you put a darker color down, there's not really a whole lot you can do to get that yellow lighter color back in there. I'm gonna take my really dark blue violet and get that in the edges here. Let's be careful, it's not like I'm making a burnt cake. And sometimes it happens, burn a cake down there. All right, I'm also going to do the same thing over on this side, except it's not going to be quite as dark. I still will keep my edges slightly darker. I'm also going to color in the inside of my cake. So I kind of figured that I'm going to have this as like a darker chocolate frosting, and this will still be my yellow cake. So again, I'm just going to put down a base layer of color. Alright, so I completed doing a base layer. Now, we have currently our dark side on the left. When you do the inside of the cake, my cast shot is on the left-hand side here, but we're going to make the inside of the right. So I'm going to darken up, and my shadow is more to this side. So I'm going to add a little darker values first with brown, and I'll darken it up with a little bit of blue. Alright, so I'm going to now add the coloring on the inside for my frosting. So generally speaking, you want to use a lighter color first and then work your way darker. So you don't want to put down the darkest color first, put down your lighter color. So I'm going to color in my chocolate on this part. So I'm going to just kind of put a first layer down. Now I'm going to come along with the darker brown. Put more pressure. Get a richer, darker chocolate color. Alright, then I'm going to come with my darker blue, a blue violet here, and just kind of darken up that edge a little bit. Alright, for my next step, I'm going to add the frosting to the outside edge. I wasn't originally going to make this chocolate, but I thought that might be too much brown. But you can really decorate your cake however you want to. And I'm going to go with, I believe, a strawberry or really light pink frosting. So again, just like before, I'm going to just start by putting down a base layer of color. And I'm just going to start with my lighter value first, and then come back with a darker red and pink, and even a little bit of blue. So another technique you can use is something called burnishing. After you have a darker color, you can take a lighter color. For instance, I could take my lighter pink and go back on top of a darker color. And if you press hard, you can kind of blend out the colors a little bit. And color in a circular motion, just to kind of get all smeared up. With smoother color pencils, it might work a little better. Crayola should work out okay. If you have cheaper pencils, it doesn't always work out quite as well. And then for the other side here, where I want it light, I can take my white color pencil and see how that lightens up the pink. And give me a smoother tone. That's called burnishing. So after you get complete coloring in all the areas of the cake, you can either use colored pencils, crayons, or you can use watercolor to do your background. Now I would suggest using a contrasting color between your background and your table. You can also add decorations to your plate if you wish. I just kind of add a little bit of a shadow from the cake using the blues. I'm going to be painting in my table with cool colors and then using the contrasting warm colors for the background. So once you have completely filling in your background and your table surface, you can go ahead and send your name once it's dry, and then you can go ahead and upload it to Artsonia. Really looking forward to seeing your amazing Wayne Thiebaud cakes. Have a great day.